What is most personal is most universal. That is a line from a psychologist named Carl Rogers. He spent years in a therapy room studying what actually happens between two people being honest with each other. And what he kept finding was that the more specific someone got about their own experience, the more everybody else listening recognized themselves in it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rachel. Now, I came across that quote totally on a fluke, and the timing was actually impeccable. It showed up in a daily inspirational quote email I get right when I was working on my last video, the one about my own beliefs. That video had me incredibly nervous. I was putting something pretty personal out there, and I didn't think it was going to be well received at all. I seriously thought that I was torpedoing my own channel, and that simple quote gave me the guts to hit publish on something that I was fairly sure was going to land wrong. It didn't land wrong, or not as wrong as I expected, and I was both surprised and relieved. I have made well over 100 of these videos now, and I keep learning different versions of the same lesson. The thing that you think is too specific, too weird, too much just yours, the fear you've never said out loud, the sadness that doesn't look like anybody else's sadness, the flaw you have spent years hiding, it is never just yours. Somebody in the comments always says some version of, "I thought I was the only one." Every single time. But somehow, it never stops being a surprise to me. That's the part nobody tells you about being specific. We think that if we want to reach people, we should smooth ourselves out, be broadly likable, say the safe thing or the outrageous thing, whichever one's going to perform best. Just look at what we're being shown all day long. Outrage, because outrage gets watched. Fear, because fear gets watched too. Travel pics and videos with the gorgeous scenes and sunsets in frame, and the hard and inconvenient parts totally edited out. We have built an entire system around showing each other the highlights and calling it a life. And eventually, I think that backfires on us. Watching everybody else's best moments doesn't make us feel connected. It makes us feel inadequate, boring, sometimes wrong. Like everybody else got the memo on how to live, and we are the only ones out here winging it. And the irony in all of it is, the more we try to be universally liked, the less universal we actually become. We sand off all our edges trying to appeal to everybody, and what's left is generic, forgettable. There is nothing left in it for anyone to actually recognize themselves in. But when somebody says something honestly, specifically true about themselves, people find themselves in it. You don't have to agree with somebody politically to recognize when they're telling the truth. You don't have to share somebody's exact grief to recognize the toll it takes. You don't necessarily have to have ADHD to know what it is like when your own head will not slow down. And you don't have to sit in an oncologist's office to understand what it means to just keep going anyway. That political one, I know from the inside, actually. 30 years ago, right out of college, I worked in politics. I didn't get the job because I had some huge interest in the topic. I did not. I was temping there. They liked my work, and they hired me on full time. I learned a lot. It was incredibly interesting and incredibly eye-opening, and I was close enough to all of it to watch how the whole thing worked. People didn't agree on much, of course, they all were obviously there to win for their side. The agendas may not have changed since then, but back then, at the end of the day, they got along, even if they were on opposite ends of the political spectrum. I knew people from opposite sides of the aisle who shared apartments during sessions to save money. I saw people who'd spent all day trying to beat each other sit down and share a cocktail that same night. What's changed is the civility and the decency everybody used to extend while they were fighting for that agenda. And it has carried over to us, everyday people, not just politicians. Part of it, I think, is that we are losing the practice of dealing with each other face to face, and it is only getting worse. It's a lot easier to scream at somebody in all caps than it would be to say the same thing to their actual face. Somewhere along the way, it became normal, almost expected, to be an asshole to anybody who disagrees with us, or to overshare and over-exaggerate everything, because subtlety does not get clicks and nuance does not go viral. Politics, social media, the group chat, take your pick. Disagreement and conflict have always been there, but at least we used to have decency to leave some of it unsaid, to trust the other person to fill in the rest of it instead of just screaming. Authenticity is weirdly recognizable. I would like to think that people can tell the difference right off the bat between somebody performing a curated version of themselves and somebody who's finally stopped doing just that. And I kind of think that's actually what my video on my beliefs proved, more than anything else, at least to me. Not everyone agreed with me. Plenty of you did not. But a lot of you stayed in the conversation anyway, because what you were recognizing was not my conclusion. It was just that I meant it, and I wasn't trying to convince anybody or shove it down anybody's throat. I was just telling you the truth about where I stood and letting you do whatever you wanted with that. You don't have to end up in the exact same place to relate to somebody's truth. I think that is the magic Rogers was talking about. Not that we're all the same underneath. We are definitely not. But that the specific, nerve-wracking, real parts of being a person turn out to be the parts that we actually have in common. It's the stuff nobody highlights that connect us. There's a Stoic who got there a long time before any of us, sort of from the opposite direction. Rogers was watching people in therapy figure out that they weren't as alone as they thought. Epictetus made the case for why other people's opinions shouldn't be the thing you're building yourself around in the first place, which, if you think about it, is the other half of the same coin. You can't fully believe that you're not alone in the human stuff until you stop needing everyone to approve your version of it, if that makes sense. Sharon LaBelle, in her modern interpretation of his teaching, phrased it this way: never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Personal merit cannot be derived from an external source. It is not to be found in your personal associations, nor can it be found in the regard of other people. It is a fact of life that other people, even people who love you, will not necessarily agree with your ideas, understand you, or share your enthusiasms. Constantly looking for validation means we are never actually being ourselves. We're being whatever version of ourselves seems most likely to get the nod. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk and teacher who's known as the father of mindfulness, spent a lot of his life on exactly this problem: how you talk to people you don't agree with. He taught something he called loving speech and deep listening. Not agreement, but not conflict avoidance either. Just the discipline of actually hearing somebody out and responding like you still consider them a person, whether or not you end up anywhere near their side of it. It's not a complicated idea. It's just gotten pretty rare. He said to be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. Different tradition, same thread, thousands of years apart. It keeps showing up because it keeps being true. Now, you know me, I've always got a couple of songs that pop into my head that I think fit whatever we're talking about. Two came to mind for this one, and they're kind of arguing the two different sides of the same thing. Rag and Bone Man's Human is both the plea and the acceptance at the same time. Forgive me, I'm not perfect, none of us are. And also, I've made my peace with that because I can't be anything else. And Who I Am by The Score is the defiant version of the same thing. Take me as I am, or don't. I don't really care either way. Same idea, same acceptance. For me, it just depends on which day you catch me on. We walk around assuming we are the only ones carrying what we're carrying. Maybe because the people closest to us don't always agree with us. Maybe because they don't always understand what we're going through. Maybe it's just because we never actually say it out loud. Some of that disagreement is absolutely real. Some people are just going to be totally rude about it. No deeper story required. But not all of it. Some of the people who see it differently than we do are carrying something of their own, and disagreeing with us has nothing to do with whether that's true. I got a lot of proof of that after that last video went up. Not just from the people who agreed with me, but also from the ones who didn't and stuck around and talked to me like I was a rational person anyway. That did more to restore my faith in people than I expected it to, and I both appreciate and love that. Thanks for watching. Take care of you, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye. Oh, and once again, for any of you wondering where Reginald is, he's right there. Reggie, say hi. He has treated a squirrel once again, and he's not letting it down. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.